people keep asking me how to be successful. So we're going to try and address it using the concept of flow. What do you understand by flow? Continuous movement. What a lot of people see is flaws. What is a flaw? And you talk to people and they're like, hey, this is wrong, that is wrong. With the universe, God is doing this, God is doing that, my wife is doing this, my wife is doing that. You're too focused on the flaw. So today we're going to talk about flow versus flaws. Okay? How do you get into a flow state? You stop looking at the How do you get into a flow state? You guys stop looking at the flaws. What's the benefit of getting into a flow state? A flow state connects you to the universe. So this is the universe. Why do we depict the universe as an arrow? Any guesses? It's called the forward motion of time. Whether time goes fast or slow in whichever part of the universe, one thing that time cannot do is go back. Right? So you can say that in some galaxy time is moving faster. Right? Or you can travel close to the speed of light and time tends to unity, which is 1 or whatever that value is. But one thing that you see about time is it never goes back because that's fundamental nature of the universe. So the universe always moves forward because that's the design of the universe. What we want to experience is this, which is the concept of multiple universes. Right? What is a multiple universe? A multiple universe means that you're sitting in this chair right now. Could you be anywhere else? Or any possibility is possible. Yeah, in our minds. But what about our timeline? Do you think all possibilities are possible? You think all possibilities are possible? I think anything is possible. What does Jesus say about multiple probabilities? If you have this thing called faith, right? You can ask this mountain to move and the mountain will move. Does he say that? That's an idea, the idea that says that anything is possible. When we say anything is possible, it means that any probability is probably possible, provided you have the faith. So what does it take to go from one probability to the next one to the next one? Really jump from one place to the next. Faith. Most people, because they are looking at flaws, they simply continue on their timeline. Because what flaws or religion does is a religion gets you to focus on what's not working for you. Okay? And when you keep doing that over a long period of time, you get stuck. And most people that you talk to, they will say, I am stuck. I have faith. But that's a lie. Do they really have faith? They say, I believe in God. Which is what they are saying is, I believe in the flow of the universe. But they do not have what it takes. They lie to themselves and they say they have the faith to make a leap of faith to a different probability. Why? Because there are two things here. What keeps them on this one timeline of theirs? What do you think? You can call it rigidity and religion. So religion is their understanding of God or their understanding of spiritual truth that keeps them on that timeline. So the moment the universe offers another probability, an opportunity, they would say, why? It's too cold, it's too hot. I have to get dressed up to go to meet this person. I don't feel like getting dressed up. Why should I change my job? There are so many things there. Why should I move to a different country? All of those are examples of how people do not wish to change, do not wish to do something different, but they expect the universe to give them this other probability chains without them having to make the switch. Okay? So don't lie to yourself. So the second thing you want to do is, what's the second thing, Alan? Don't lie. If you say there is no God, then you lie and that the truth is not in you. That's what scripture says. So there is a God. And that God is not manipulating you. The God is providing you the opportunities and He's sitting back relaxed. So most people might ask, where is God? Where is God? We say in heaven, right? So let's say that heaven, He's relaxed. Why is He relaxed? Why is He relaxed? Because He solved His problem. What was God's problem? A sinful mankind, right? He had a problem with sin, people doing what not what they're supposed to do. So what He did, He crucified Christ on the cross, and now He is relaxed, because now those sins don't reach His throne, if you get what I'm saying, because He solved His problem. He's pretty much chilled out. The second thing He's done for us is that He's given us probability to play with. He said that I've set up the universe in a way that you can experience absolute abundance if you understand it, and you can experience absolute poverty if you understand it. So the option here, when I say probability, is a probability of abundance or poverty. Most people are poor. Why are most people poor? Is it poor because God kept them poor? No. They're poor in their mind. They're always looking at the flaws, and religion or rigidity ties them into that single probability that keeps them poor. So what's your goal? If your goal is to experience abundance, now I'm not just talking about money, I'm talking about abundance of opportunity, where you just don't have one opportunity, you have 5. That is also abundance. Some people are experiencing an abundance of food, they're too fat, but they could be but they're actually poor people. So you may ask me, hey Alvin, how are fat people poor people? Fat people are poor because they have no choice. They can not choose not to eat that sweet. They have no choice. But if they were to experience health in a different way, we eat food to maintain our health. But if they understood that health is an outcome of not eating, where the scripture says that my word is food for you. Man does not live by bread alone, but that you actually do better when you eat less. That is an option. That's called abundance. So poor people are fat. Poor people are, they don't have money in the bank. And whatever money they earn, they spend it on the lottery, or they spend it on buying stupid things. They never get rich because they're poor in the head. Why are you poor? So poverty is directly linked to this thing. What do we call this? Rigidity in the timeline, right? So the problem here is there is a rigidity in the timeline. If your timeline is too rigid, you're unable to make opportunities, you're unable to exercise your faith, then chances are you will continue to be poor till the day you die. So let's put the end point here. The end point is death. Okay? Right, I'll wait for questions here. Does anybody have a question? Okay. Most people, they follow religion. So what is religion? How do you understand religion? Religion is anything you believe about God. People say we believe in Jesus, or you believe in Krishna, or whatever. But that's your idea of what Jesus is. Because Jesus himself as an entity is male or female, outside your understanding. But what you do is that you extrapolate an understanding into the religion, and you think that's the religion. That's the Jesus you follow. But everybody's Jesus is different. Now this might sound a little weird to people, but for the thief, Jesus is like a thief. Because Jesus said, the kingdom of God comes like a thief in the night. You won't expect it. So to the thief, that he gets it. To the person who's committing adultery, Jesus says, I understand. That's what he said to the woman who had, and she became his chief evangelist. To Paul the murderer, Jesus became someone who said, it's okay, but there's no point in you murdering more people, because it's hard for you to kick against what's already coming your way. But the word he used was a kick against the goads or the pricks. You can keep butting your head against the wall till the time you understand the entity of Christ. So Christ is an entity. So Christ as an entity. When I say entity, he is all God, let us say, whatever God is. He's conceptual, which means he completely fills the mind. He's definitely conceptual. Is he a human? Yes, he is human as well. And he's like everything that you can. But what religion does, it picks out one tiny aspect of Jesus and then says that is Jesus and that isn't. And then they will die for it. So there are instances where a pope ordered the killing of 13 million Jews because in the name of God. Right? So there's a lot of stuff that happens in this world in the name of religion. Does that make it right or wrong? It's right to the person who's doing it. It's wrong for the person who's done against. Right? So this, the point being that religion helps people get focused, but there's only a limited progress that humans make. Maximum amount of progress has happened when people started operating by faith. Even Mozart, Beethoven, when they wrote their pieces, they said they came in a flow state. It happened to them. Michael Jordan shooting his best game-winning shots. He said it happens in a flow state. So these are the flow states that we want to now talk about. So now that we've talked about flows, we now want to talk about what does it mean to be in a flow state. Okay, I'll pause for any questions while I rub this. So how do you go from a flow state to a flow state? It's called the subtle art of. Have you heard that book? The subtle art of not giving a fuck. Means that don't fucking care. The subtle art of not giving a fuck, right? So don't worry. You see somebody's flaws, don't worry. You see your own flaws, don't worry. Don't be too hard to judge. It's too hard, you try to give feedback to someone and they're like, you're judging me. The reason you're saying that is because you're judging them. You're like, everyone's very judgmental, right? Somebody's driving a car in front of you and they turned left or right, not using their blinker. Or like, that person is an evil person. Has that happened to you? Has that happened? Somebody's driving and they're like, definitely a woman driver, definitely a female driver. Because, they didn't use their indicator, or they're driving weird all over the road. And 99% is sometimes true as well. Nothing against women drivers, but the subtle art of not giving a fuck. Okay? If you're getting too bothered by somebody saying something to you, what does that mean? Indicate. Now let's talk about the theory of the mirror. So if this is a mirror, right? I see you. I see you. I see you. But I see you the way I see myself. Right? So to the thief, everyone's a thief. Why is everyone a thief? And you might hear these statements like government chora. Right? To the person who's thieving their own time, it's not hardworking, they want to talk about why the government is being ineffective. The reason they want to talk about the government being ineffective because they themselves are being ineffective in life. A successful businessman never talks about the government. Why? He's all got his own thing going. He's already making money, and he's looking for loopholes in the government laws that he can use to save tax or do business in a different area. So your own perspective is going to drive what you see in other people. So you see a flaw. Somebody says, hey, you're judging me. Chances are that you are judgmental, which is why that other person is judging you. Otherwise, to the person who's already on a path of self-improvement, that is feedback. So if a dog barks at you, how do you react? You could react different ways. You can say, oh, it's okay. Are you hungry? Which means you're a dog lover. You like dogs, so you understand why the dog is barking. But if the dog's barking and you say, hey, stop barking at me because I take it personally, then chances are you're a bit judgmental because you think that the dog barking at you is because of something you said or did. Now you want to judge the dog because the dog's judging you. Yeah? You with me so far? So how do you see life? You see it the way you see yourself. Fat people will work with fat people, right? The nines and tens in a college, the girls who are nines and tens will hang out with other nines and tens because that's what they think of themselves. So therefore, rich people will hang out with rich people. Birds of a feather will always flock together. The reason they do that is because they see themselves, that's how they see others, and they tend to kind of get along. Intellectuals will get along with intellectuals, academicians will get along with academicians, etc. Housewives will get along with housewives, right? Women will get along more with women than with other men. So the moral of the thing is how you see yourself is how you're going to see others, and through that you're going to see who? You're going to see the universe. You may never meet God. So let me just put this on a, right? You see yourself. Just work with me here. You see yourself. That's how you see others. And as you see others, you begin to see the universal flow. And you tend to judge the universe how you're judging yourself and then others and then the universe. So for example, if you have a bad boss and you see yourself as like, I'm being troubled at work. So you see your boss as a bad person. And because you see your boss as a bad person, the universe is a bad place. My parents are always after my life because I don't brush my teeth in the morning, for example. So you tend to, because you're lazy in that area, you see the other person as the problem, not realizing that you are the problem. The other person's the problem because the other person is just a reflection of the problem. And you say the universe is a bad place. And then when we finally bring it into religion, the answer is God doesn't love me. I don't want to fix the problem, which is me. But this is the problem, the system's the problem, my parents are the problem. Whoever's communicating the poverty, my poverty, to me is the problem. And from here we can say Facebook's the problem, Instagram is the problem, Snapchat is the problem. Yeah, Alan, you get what I'm saying? Snapchat's the problem, Instagram's the problem. I spend my entire time on Instagram. The reason you spend your entire time on Instagram is because you have a poor self-image, which you're trying to shore up by either posting some Instagram selfies and hoping that you got some likes, or watching somebody else's Instagram selfies and thinking that they're getting likes. So it's just you, which you then transpose on other people. And then we haven't talked about attraction yet. We're just talking about defining the problem here and how to go from a flaw state to a flow state. And because I see that in other people, I miss their good stuff. They have good things to offer, but I don't take that. I only take the stuff that doesn't work for me. I reflect on that. Therefore, the universe sends me. Now let's talk about attraction. So what does the universe send me? So because I have a negative view of myself, I will have a negative view of others, and I will have a negative view of the universe. And what will the universe send back to me? Negative stuff. Because the universe is neutral. So one thing about the universe, it is neutral. It doesn't decide. It cannot decide on your behalf, because the universe is just meant to reflect who you are. So if you go looking for flaws in others, the universe starts sending you negative or flawed things your way. So the car that you get breaks down. The wife that you get tends to pick more fights than she does anything good for you. The husband that you pick turns out to be a complete lout, is not earning money or is drinking his liver away, right? The universe starts sending. And then what we call as a vicious cycle, right? So what's the vicious cycle here? The vicious cycle is that I see my flaws. I judge other people using those flaws. The universe, I judge like that, and the universe judges me back. And then what happens in overall, we end up blaming God through any religion we follow, and we say God really doesn't love me. And from here you have concepts like God's timing. It's not the right time. Yeah. Or not God's will. Not God's will. Oh, I really wanted this thing, but it's not God's will. But what does Jesus say to that? He says anything. You can randomly speak to a mountain for no reason, the mountain will move. What he's trying to tell you is that it's got nothing to do with timing, it's got nothing to do with God's will. He's breaking that idea. So what Jesus solved was very, very high level problem. Obviously you may think of sin as a personal problem, but no, it's not a personal problem. Sin as a universal problem, Jesus solved it using the cross, right? So when we talk about Jesus as an entity that is solving a problem, you think he's solving your problem. But in reality, what he's doing is that he died for the sins of all mankind. So he solved the universal problem of how God is perceived. Now let's look at the trickle-down effect of this. Man is caught in this vicious cycle. He's unable to make progress. So what Jesus does, he provides you a different view of God, so that now you can have a different cycle. So let's look at the alternate cycle. So what does the alternate cycle look like? The alternate cycle says Jesus allows you to look at yourself differently. So how does Jesus break the cycle, right? So how does he put a cross through the cycle? So we had an earlier cross, now we're going to put a cross through the cycle. So how do you put a cross through the cycle? Jesus says, you're okay. What does Jesus say? What does Jesus say? You're okay. You're a fat person, you're okay. You're a murderer, you're okay, I love you. You're an adulterous person, promiscuous, sleeping around, no problem, I love you. The first thing that Jesus helps you fix. So he fixed two things. He fixed the universal problem of God not loving me. He fixed that. And he fixed the personal problem by telling you it's okay. The moment you are okay with yourself and you begin to see that the problem's you, it's not with any one of the other situations, it's just you. Then he fixes your flow. So from here, your view of yourself, he fixes the flow there. You're able to see yourself in a better light. You know that you can now study, you can be anything you want. He allows you all of that, and he gives you angels to help. He gives you Holy Spirit. He gives you ideas. He starts connecting with you on a personal level. This is not a religious flow. This is a divine flow. Now, this could come to someone like a person like Bruce Lee or Kobe Bryant or any of the top sports stars. What they have understood really well is that they need to be okay with who first? Themselves. They're okay with themselves. They know that the problem is themselves. They're going to fix the problem themselves. These are the people who are out there 4 o'clock in the morning, Dwayne Johnson, working out in the gym twice before even somebody wakes up. Because he knows that all the answers are going to come from within. Christ helps you sort the within so you can sort the without. Right? So when your flow internally is fixed, then you can look at other people differently. Right? You get your flow set towards the universe, to other people, and then from there you set your flow to the universe, and suddenly you are surprised because now the universe starts sending you what we call abundance. So what is abundance? Abundance is more than enough, I don't need it. What is abundance? More than enough, I don't need it. Having one shirt versus having 5 shirts to choose from, abundance. Having 5 job opportunities and then having to choose which one. Having 5 businesses and all 5 giving you a return. That's abundance. But Jesus fixes that by helping you see yourself differently so that you can see the best in others. And they are flawed too. But instead of seeing their flaw, you begin to see their flow. You're able to connect with people for their gifts instead of their flaws. And you're able to partner better. This is a conscious process. Now you can do it with or without Christ.
Or does it happen when you have a good view of yourself?
It doesn't happen automatically because you have 70 years. So let's put this. Let's put this on a timeline. So you have odd 70 years, limited by God, 70, to make this discovery. So let's look at how the discovery happens. It's a process. So from 0 to 10. So this is 0 to 10, you're practically growing up, you are innocent till the time your hormones hit in. So at puberty, around somewhere here, your hormones hit in. Hormones are what drive desires. So from here to here, so this is 20, you're driven by desire, which is mostly hormonal. So it's a desire to mate, it's a desire to find your place in society. You kind of desire. You're driven primarily by hormones because hormones decide that. But somewhere around 30, we say that you've achieved some sort of wisdom, because you have an understanding how the world works. You've tried to run after your desires, and you find out that you can fulfill some and you can not fulfill some. Jesus started his ministry at 30. That give you a sense of how that timeline works. So from 30, you go to 40 to 50 to 60 to 70. Think about it, it's a very short life, isn't it? Yeah? It's a very short life. So by the time you're 30, you start thinking about the meaning of life, right? You get into that stage. So from here to here, you've got how you fit into society, right? Yeah, you got your desires, and now, but you're in a place where you're meaningfully fitting into society. You're a doctor, you're a lawyer, you're a philosopher, you're a teacher, whoever, and you're trying to make a contribution back to society. That's probably how that timeline goes. So on this timeline, answering your question now, when does this happen? When does this enlightenment experience happen? It can happen early on, or it can happen late. It doesn't really matter when it happens. Next part of the question, does it happen automatically? Now, that's an interesting question, because either something drastic happens to you, where somebody gets cancer and they have to fight cancer and they have an enlightenment experience through that. They have a really bad experience, and then they come to enlightenment through that. Or you could be, for example, when Buddha had his own idea of enlightenment, he was a king. He was I think he was Ashoka the king. No, I forget his real name. He had everything going for him, and he realized that is not life. Having everything isn't life. It's not like having multiple wives or money or enjoyment is not life. There's something else there. So he renounces everything and goes in the search of this enlightenment. So when does it happen? It can happen automatically, or it can happen right now, which is why we're having this talk. The reason we're having this talk is because you can trigger a flow state at will. Because that's Jesus saying that if you have faith the size of a mustard seed, you can speak to the mountain, which means what he's saying is it can happen anytime. He's not saying when you have faith. He said if you have faith. So it's not a case of timing here, or that at a certain age it'll work. It'll work for anyone, anytime, if they step up and trigger a flow state, right? So that's a great question. When does this flow state happen, and you begin to see good things happen to you like that, right? How do you trigger a flow state? Okay, let's go to that. No problem. All right, flow versus flow. Okay, what was the last question that we were trying to answer? We're trying to say, how do we go? We already answered how do we go from a flow state to a flow state. Okay, we stop looking at the flaws. Jesus helps us. Without Jesus, also it's possible when you stop looking at your flaws. Right? I'm not saying it's not possible without Jesus, but Jesus might be the enabler at the back, and you might never meet that person. Just like you might never see where the YouTube videos are stored, but it doesn't stop you from watching YouTube. You don't know where it's stored, right? I mean, it could be stored right next to your house or probably in a server in Europe. It doesn't matter. So similarly, Jesus might be the big enabler at the back. You may never meet him throughout your life, but he's kind of doing things in the background. Okay. With the help of angels, Holy Spirit, and all the spiritual beings. Okay. What was the question we're trying to address? When does the flow happen? So how to trigger flow? That was what are the flows for trigger? So triggers for flow. Sorry. So what is a trigger? A trigger could be something that is life changing. Something happens to you, right? We say that God did this to me, and it's an immediate answer, right? Something happened, right? Something drastic happened. You lost a family member. Somebody fell sick. Your dog died. You lost a job. Something that is dramatically life-changing could be a trigger for flow, or it could be a trigger for flaws, right? So something life-changing happens, and it's like God doesn't love me. It triggers the flow again. It doesn't trigger a flow; it triggers the flow. Another way to do it is NDEs. Anything that puts you closest to exiting the life timeline, which is a near-death experience. So anything which includes opening you out completely to the point that where you have a distinct probability of dying, opens you out to flow. Life-changing events can go positive or negative, but can go both ways. But NDEs, which are either you control, you bungee jump, or you jump from a airplane, or you jump from a 20-foot rock into water, or you go swimming. Like, I started swimming. It's pretty close to dying because you don't get air and you think like you're dying. Or if you get your timing wrong, you might breathe some water in, and it's pretty scary. So anything which brings you close to death. Now when I say death or an experience that where you think you're going to die, I'm trying to put actual experience or you think that you're going to die, either way, are something that's going to trigger flow, right? You can plan these. You can plan a bungee jump. You can plan, like for example, I used to be a very scared person, not being able to talk to my boss, and I remember jumping off a 20-foot rock in Rishikesh. And right after I came back, I remember writing an email to my boss telling her that she was not a great boss. So what I didn't have the courage to say earlier, I developed this thing called courage. So to say, now when we say courage, it's probably another term for faith with action. Because that's what actually takes courage. It's you believe something, you act on it, even though you have fear. And that's what we call courage. And that's like it's an umbrella term to catch all what we understand from spiritual language as faith with action. So anything that brings you close to death triggers a flow state, or it can trigger you into getting into a flow state. Rituals can trigger flow state. For example, right before I go swimming, I do a lot of rituals because I wear my shoes or flippers, I wear my clothes, I look at myself in the mirror. These are rituals that you follow right before a game because you know you're going to go into performance mode, where you know that you're going to fail publicly, people are going to, or you're going to die, right? So all of those things that trigger fear. Now, when we say death is, these are all fear triggers. Flow triggers are in a sense fear triggers, right? So you have fear of dying, fear of this, fear of public speaking, fear of that, fear of failing in a marriage, fear of divorce, fear of losing a child, or fear of losing a parent, whatever. Fear that your dog will run away with some other dog. Whatever that fear is, when we face that fear or we trigger that fear, and then in the middle of that fear we go and act by faith, that's what we call courage, right? We got fear. I'm fearful of marriage, so I shouldn't marry, versus I'm fearful of marriage, but I'm still going to go get married and we'll see how it goes. That takes courage. That takes faith in action, right? So against fear, right? So let's put it this way. Fear and flaw are kind of related, right? I see other people's flaws because I'm fearful. That's why I see the flaw. All I see is the flaw because I'm fearful of change. And as long as I can mention the flaw, I don't need to change. That makes sense? As long as I see the flaw in the program, like for example, Elon Musk, when he wanted to launch SpaceX, everybody told him that he's going to lose his money. And it was his personal money, I think, that he went to Russia to buy a couple of rockets. And because he had the money from the PayPal thing that he had, that he sold, his friends showed him videos of rockets exploding, just to show him that, you can literally lose your money with every rocket that explodes. But he went ahead with it anyway. I'm sure he had the fear, but because he had faith, he believed, he had the courage, he took action, and 3 rockets exploded, and he ran out of all of his money. So all of those prophecies actually came true. He ran out of money completely. And then he was company was about to go, SpaceX was about to go bankrupt. That's what the story says. Till someone stepped in last minute, in the last 24 hours, I think, or last 5 hours, somebody stepped in and gave him money for just one more rocket. And he was able to raise the money, and the 4th rocket took off, and the company took off after that. So the point being that whether he knows Jesus or not, whether he's religious or not, whether he's a faith person or not, he definitely has done a couple of things here. He's overcome fear. When I say overcome fear, he's had fear. He understands the flaws. He understands that rockets can explode, and there is no way of testing a rocket before it takes off. There's no way of doing that. So the technology itself, you can't fix. You just have to experience and go with the flow of that. But at the same time, he had the belief that he's going to be able, that he needs to do this, that he's the person who's been designated to do this. So that, all of that is what we call a flow state. A flow state, now again, coming to how do you trigger a flow state, right? You overcome the fear of not wanting to do something because you see the flaw. And then from there, you think you're going to die. or the company is going to die, whatever you're trying to build is going to die. From there, it actually happens, and from there, it starts to work. That's kind of how flow works. Yeah. Okay. In order to get you past the fear, is what we develop the rituals for. Now, most of these rituals are not rituals in a sense that they are religious rituals, that you go to a church or you light a candle or something like that. It is not that ritual. This ritual has to do with overcoming fear ritual. So this is where Tony Robbins does the fire walk, right? I mean, I'm sure you have seen Tony Robbins doing the fire walk, where he gets people to walk on hot coals. And it's actually, people have a fear of doing that, but then you walk on those hot coals and you're perfectly fine after you walk because your skin doesn't burn. You think you're going to die. So those are like rituals which you can incorporate in your daily life that can help you overcome fear on a daily basis. Most of us, we encounter fear very few times because we insulate ourselves. We surround ourselves with this nice gooey teddy bears, Instagram, Facebook, watching cute cat videos. And we insulate ourselves with fat. By eating food, we insulate ourselves, but we feel cold, right? Have you seen a thin person who doesn't feel cold? The fat person feels cold even though the fat is an insulator of heat. It's because we spend our lives insulating or covering ourselves with a lot of cushion, getting a softer mattress so that we can sleep better, but we don't sleep better even though we have the soft mattress. It's because of that insulation is fear, right? So rituals help you remove the insulation little by little. You don't have to do it all one day. You can do it little by little. So go out of your comfort zone. So fear, let me put another word here, is representative of the comfort zone or the survivalist mind, right? I don't want to change.
Comfort zone and
Survivalistic mind says, why kill yourself? Why kill yourself trying? Why try in the first place? You might die. So that's survivalistic mind, or I don't know what it's called. I think it might be called the limbic mind, or I don't know the specific term. But Joe Dispenza talks about it, and we'll talk about it in the subsequent sessions. Survivalist mind says, why try? It's a bad world out there. God doesn't love you. Why go get yourself killed? But and fear supports that. Fear says that why do it? That's fear talking, right? And then you want to get out of fear, knowing that all the flow state is out of fear. So you then either do this, or this. You change a job, that's life changing. Even when you have motivational gurus telling you to go change a job, if you don't like your boss, change a job. Most people don't change their job, but the ones who do, it becomes life changing for them. Even changing a marriage is life changing. Changing houses is life changing. A near-death experience that you can trigger using is life-changing. And then you have daily rituals that you can build. What did I write here? Firewalk, right? Yeah. Okay. So what are some rituals you could do? Okay, let's go over now to the final point for today. What are some rituals, daily rituals you can build into your system that will help you get into a flow state faster? Exercise. Excellent. So most people exercise, they want to lose weight. No, that's not the way to exercise. There's a way to exercise where you can trigger flow states. So exercise triggers flow state, but it also matters as to how you exercise. So what is the rituals? Exercise as a ritual versus exercise as just exercise. People are exercising to lose weight. They'll never lose weight. Why? Because exercising to, how do I put this? Exercise as a means to overcome the fear versus exercise as a means to lose weight, right? So you want to do something that brings you closer and closer to your fear and helps you overcome that fear. So whatever your fear is, so if your fear is, for example, if I walk 20 kilometers, I might break something. That's a fear. If I go swimming, I might die. Why go swimming? So things that you do when you exercise, you tend to break through the fear. So any exercise that you do, if it's like, oh, I did 20 push-ups today, doesn't matter, because maybe you didn't break anything. You didn't reach a point where you overcame a fear. So if you didn't reach a point where you overcame a fear, then you probably didn't hit that ceiling. So exercise but done with a view to hit a fear ceiling. So let's call this a fear ceiling. A fear ceiling is a fear trigger, right? So I feel fear now. I've walked a lot, I might die. Okay, I used to walk 20 kilometers plus, so I walked a lot, therefore I'm really feeling that I'm not going to make it home. It's too hot, the sun might kill me. That's hitting a fear ceiling and then pushing past it. So that's when exercise really works as like an NDE kind of an experience. So these experiences help you get into the flow state, but these have to be fundamentally experiences. They can't be they can't be books that you read. They can't be just things that you saw in a video game or saw on a YouTube video. You have to experience these. Okay, so I think that's that, and then we can continue later. But so how do you go from a flow state to a flow state? We talked about the subtle art of not giving a fuck, not looking at other people's flaws, allowing Jesus to help you, all of the stuff that we talked about. And then you go into the flow state. How do you trigger flow? You trigger flow by having something happen to you, life changing. And you go from there, you go positive or negative. You have near death experiences, and you can trigger them or they can happen on their own. Or you have some rituals which can then slowly daily or what we call micro habits that push you towards actually doing better. Exercise is one of them, but done with a view to push the fear threshold. It has to be done with a view to push the fear threshold. If you just do exercise because like a regimented exercise, like 20 push-ups, 30 sit-ups, you probably won't. Or if you do it like a motivational, I'm going to do this, it can work for about 2-3 weeks, but it'll probably fizzle out after that. And usually those diets, they go for a toss after a long time, after those 21 days, right? Okay, so micro habits will pick up in the next session. It's also a very important part of the flow state. Thank you so much for listening. Have a great day.